So I recently put up a SketchUp tutorial. It wasn't really a tutorial. It was just kind of like I really just put it out there on YouTube. It just said this is my thought process in doing a SketchUp, and it wasn't intended to be a start to finish type of thing for a project itself. But the internet being the internet, a person by the name of Bored at Work 2000 had commented on the site and said, it would have been a lot more useful if you had started from the beginning. If I knew how to get this far, I could easily do the rest. Okay, so what I've found very unique about SketchUp, because you have woodworkers and you have SketchUp people, and you have people that are really good at computers and not good at computers, is that the range of skill, the skill range or whatever you want to call it, is pretty much from one end of the spectrum to the other. So I never know what it is that somebody does know and what it is that they don't know and what it is they want to know. So anyhow, I'm going to try to help out here as much as I can. So Mr. or Mrs. or whatever Bored at Work 2000, what I want to do is just take that table. I no longer had the drawing for that particular one, and I just couldn't find it. So, anyways, I'm just going to recreate it as quickly as I can. And again, if you're new to SketchUp, I apologize because this is going to go too fast. If you're familiar with SketchUp, then you'll get it. Okay, but here's the way that I would do it. And again, I'm going to talk through as I do this very, very rapidly, but I'm hitting Z, the speed key zoom to zoom in. I like doing that. I'm going to go up and I'm just going to hit my R for rectangle. I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to make my 3 by 3, so I just make any side rectangle at all, and then I type in 3 comma 3. That gives me my rectangle. I immediately convert everything to components, so I selected that completely. I make a component, and I'm going to call that a leg, L-E-G. Say enter. Now I've got my first component, which is my leg. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to double click on it, which is, I call it breaking through the force shield. So I'm now into the edit mode on that. I'm going to pull it up. I don't know what that one that I did earlier was, but I'm going to pull it up to be, let's say 26 inches. So I just pull it up to any height. Right now I'm at 14 and 30 seconds or something. But before I leave, I'm going to type in 26. And now I have a 26-inch tall post. All right. Next thing that I would do is I always use guidelines. So I'm going to do the T for tape. I'm going to make a guideline right here. I'm going to make another one that's going to be let's just call it 18 inches away. Again, I have no idea what that size of that table was. So now I have a guideline going in two different directions, which is going to help me relocate this. I'm going to hit the M for move. I'm going to hold down the control key while I have it in the move mode, which makes a copy of it. And it really wants to go along that dotted line and along the axis there. I'm going to make sure I always go to an intersection. So now I have two posts, all right? And then I'm going to cheat, and I am going to make another guideline going this direction. I'm going to type in 18 to go to 18 inches away. Now I'm going to cheat. I'm going to take this one, and I am going to do the control. I got them both selected at the same time. I'm going to move them. Again, I did a control move. I locked it in right down there at that point. So I don't like it when it says online. I really want it to be at the intersection. I'm going to actually do that over again because I'm not sure if I lost it and I don't want to be off. So I'm going to control Z to undo that. I'm going to zoom in a little closer so I become a little more accurate. I can still see this one and this one. I'm going to click on that one. I'm going to hold down my control key and click on this one. So now I have both of them selected. Again, I'm going to hit my M for my speed key for move. I am going to go down here to the endpoint. I'm going to hold down my control key and drag it. And then by doing that again, I make a copy of it. I guess that's all going to give me. It's just going to say online. I know why I didn't want to do that. I'm going to Control Z. I'm using the green axis, but I didn't make a dotted line, a guideline. So I'm going to do that now. I just like to tend to go on dotted. I use the guideline. I just pulled it out and put it right back where I got it from. Now there's actually a dotted line there. Now let's just see if this happens to work a little better. I'm clicking on this one here. I'm holding down the control key, clicking on this one. I'm hitting the M key, and I'm doing a control M. I'm dragging it over, and there, that's what I was looking for, where it says intersection rather than on a line, because that's much more accurate. Okay, so basically now I have my posts. I have my 4 posts. I have not done a save yet, so if you look way up at top here, it says untitled. I just as soon not lose my work, so I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call it, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. I'm going to call it Table. I'll move it around into a different folder later. Table YouTube. All right, now I have a saved file. Now, the other thing that was on that one was the rails themselves, which are going to go up here. So I'm just going to always jockey myself into a really good position, and I'm going to zoom in. I teach a course in SketchUp, and I noticed that like a lot of the guys don't like to zoom in too far, and I really think they should. So because I'm going to make my rail, let's make it 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to come out just to anywhere. It doesn't make any difference with that guideline. Again, I use guidelines all the time, but before I do anything else, if you notice right down here, it's whatever, a random number, and I'm going to type in 1.5, and now watch the line move. It should have, yep, okay. And just to double check that, I'm going to put my tape here and measure over there. I don't get what I wanted, so I don't like that. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to up. Okay, it's not giving me a guideline, which can happen. Okay, I 1.5. There we go. Let's just double check. Do I have 1.5 from there to there? And I do. All right. And then let's just say that I think I said in the other video that it was 4 inches. So I'm taking a guideline and I'm going down 4 inches. Now I could have done a rectangle right off the get-go, but again, I just like using guidelines all the time. And by the way, I'm not inside this component. I did not break through the force shield because I don't want to be. As an addition to that component, I want it to be its own component. So now I have a nice rectangle for me. Now if I hit the R, or if I go up here and grab that, the rectangle, but I'm going to type in R, I'm going to go to the corner, I'm going to make sure I'm at the intersection. You can see intersection pop up. Now I click and drag, and when I take it down to that one where it also says intersection, if I look down in the lower right corner, I see 1.5 by 4, which is the size of the rail that I want. I click to say, okay, that's good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that new flat spot that I just made. It's a two-dimensional thing. Again, I'm going to make it a component. I'm going to call it a rail, R-A-I-L. And now I have my rail. And then, oops, didn't mean to do that. Now I'm going to Z for zoom out, and so that I can see over here this next item, the next post. And now I know where I'm going with this thing, so I'm going to go back onto this. I'm going to double click it, break through the floor shield. I'm going to hit P for push pull. I'm going to pull it, and I'm just going to take it right to this line. It doesn't make any difference where I am, I'm just right here. It'll lock in. And if you look at the bottom, it's 18 inches. So that's what I wanted. So now I have my rail. All right. And then I'm going to start getting rid of some of my guidelines. They're getting too disturbing. So I'm going to go up to Edit, Delete Guides, because I don't need those anymore. And then I am going to grab this rail here. I'm going to hit M to make a copy of it. And then I am going to drag it over to here and lock it into that side. And for those of you that are into flipping, because there's a reason to do it, I am going to double click on this, or excuse me, right click, and I'm going to flip it along the red. Doesn't look any different, but it will turn out to be different later. Like if I go in here right now and I push pull this right side, it also push pulls the other one. Or if I hadn't done that, then they would go in opposite directions. So I'm going to Control C out of that. All right, so now I have those two rails, and then I'm just going to take, what I could have done is, here's another way you could do it. I could have waited and done this, but anyways, I'm just going to take these two rails here, and then I am going to use the move key, but also again with Control move, right? Oops, didn't grab. So let's do it again. I want to select that one, and I want to select this one, and then I'm going to hit move, the M for move. I'm going to Control move it, right? So I just get it out there. And then I'm going to hit Q, which is the speed key for rotate. I'm making sure that I'm on the blue axis. And then I'm going to spin both of those at the same time. I'm going to type in 90 for 90. All right, now I didn't change the location. I still got both of them selected right now. So theoretically, if I bring them over here to that corner, any one of them, I needed to grab it by the corner though. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Again, you can you still have your selection even though you're zooming. I'm going to hit the M again, and where I want to be with this guy is right there. I locked it in, make sure it locked in, and I have the other one. And then I'm just going to go back to that other video that I did earlier. I'm not sure if I had two set of top rails and bottom rails. I did. Okay, so I have another set down towards the bottom on this project. And I don't know where I put them, but let's just say I want to put them 1 inch up from the bottom. So I'm going to grab all 4 of these guys. I'm going to select. I'm going to hold down my control key, select that guy. I'm going to select that guy, select that guy. I might even want to make a group here, so I'm going to make a group of those 4. That way I don't have to fool around with it later. So now it's a group. I'm going to do a control M, and I'm going to drag that baby down to the bottom, which is fine. And then now that I know where the bottom is, then I'm going to grab them again from somewhere else. I'm going to bring them up 1 inch, so I'm just pulling it up, and then I'm going to type 1 for inch. All right, so now I have my rails, and you know that really looks a lot like the other drawing. There's a couple of other minor changes, but I am going to go over to my tray. Excuse me, not that tray. I'm going to go over to my tray, and I am going to do the wood. I always use this one here, which is the green ugly one. I immediately edit it to make. Oops, I have to select something first. All right, and then I'm going to immediately edit it. Click on edit. I'm going to lighten it up a little bit so that if I do put a dimension over the top of it, it shows up a little better. And I don't like it to look green. I want to see down here a little further. I want to see this down here. So then I'm going to change this to so that the knots look more realistic relative to the scale. So I'm going to type in 12. I just always use 12. And now my knots look a little more realistic. All right. Now that I've got what I want there, I'm going to go down and click that. I'll click that one, and that one. And basically we now have a table, or at least the frame for the table that we want, that matches up that other YouTube video. Again, the person kind of thought that they really would rather know how I started from the beginning. Now, just so we know where we're at with dimensioning, I'm going to go up to dimensions. I'm going to dimension from here to here, which is 3. I don't like that size of that font, so I'm going to go to Windows. I'm going to go to Model Information, and I am going to go to Dimensions, which I did. I'm going to go to Fonts. It always takes a few seconds right here, and it's going to pull up different size fonts. I'm going to convert it to 8. I just like a font of 8 for all my stuff. I'm going to say Select All Dimensions, and then I'm going to update the selection. So from this point forward, now you can see it's a little easier to deal with. It's not so big, especially when you're working with smaller stuff. So I got that dimension there, and then I am going to throw another dimension on this side, so we know that this is a 3x3 post. All right, and then I'm going to angle in there a little better. I want to know how long that post needs to be. And by the way, I start to see it slowing down. It's kind of recreating the knots all the time. This isn't that fast of a computer. So the next thing I'm going to do is go up to monochrome, not monochrome, I'm sorry. I want to go up to shaded, but now I'm not going to have the knots. Okay, so now everything's going to move a little faster, so when I orbit, I don't get that drag. All right, so I've got my dimension going one direction here. I've got my other dimension going this way. And of course, to cut a board, you're always going to have at least 3 dimensions. So I'm going to redimension it again. I'm going to start up here. Oops, didn't mean to do that. It's grabbing the wrong thing. Here we go. I'm going to start at the bottom, go up. I'm dragging that out. So I have it 26 inches is the post. And one thing I like to do is I like to group my dimensions so I can do a scene. So I'm going to hit that guy there. I'm going to click him. I'm going to control click that, control click that. I'm going to create a group. And now those dimensions, if I want to, I can just do a hide, and I don't see them as I'm working on other stuff. They kind of disturb me after a while. So that's one way to do that particular part of it. I'm going to do a edit, unhide. Okay, so I got my dimensions back. And then what I do when I do a cut list is I will take a piece of it out of here. So I'm going to take this piece right here. I'm going to leave it there, but I'm going to make a copy of it. I'm going to drag it over off to the side somewhere. And I'm going to do that a little differently. I'm going to actually drag this whole guy over. No, let's just leave it. Okay, I'm going to drag it over here, so it's off the rest of the drawing. It doesn't get confused. I'm going to probably have to redimension that, so I will. I want to go to dimension there. Come on, there you go. 3, and I'll pick up my other dimension here. Should be 26. It is. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these dimensions here because I don't like my dimensions right at my drawing. Again, I like to have a separate area off. I'm going to group these guys, make them a group. Again, that way I can hide them later if I want. Then I'm going to pull one of these rails over. Now, I do happen to know all the rails are exactly the same because I made it one component and just made copies of it. That's a group I pulled over. I didn't really mean to do that. Let's just go ahead and do it. I'll pull it over close to this. I'm going to click on the group and I'm going to say explode so I no longer have a group. I'm going to get rid of 3 of 4. I get rid of this. I'm going to hit delete, delete, delete. So basically now I have my rails and then I'm going to get a little different angle on it. All right, I'm going to dimension this guy here so I know how long to cut it. So I'm going to cut it 18 inches long. I am going to make it 4 inches high. And this is where the font comes in. Like once you start getting into smaller stuff, you can still not see the 1.5 right there all that well. If it's a larger font, it would be harder yet to see. But if I start zooming in, if you notice way over here on the left, I'm starting to lose my drawing, which is a good thing. Because now I can really focus on what it is that I want to cut, you know, my cut list. And I have to kind of remember, but there's another way to do this. I know I need 4 of these, I need 8 of these. And then so that I can always come back here, I'm going to go up and I'm going to close out or minimize materials. I'm going to make scenes. I'm going to click on plus to make a scene. You can see up here I have scene number 1. I like to give my names to scenes. So I'm going to call this materials, or I'll call it cut list. So I have cut list. So now I can always come back here. I can always, right here, right now, what I'm going to do is I am going to select all of those. I selected from right to left, not left to right. If you know what I'm talking about there's definitely a difference. And I am going to hide that. All right, I'm going to zoom out so I can see my table again. I'm going to create a scene of just the table. And to be honest with you, after a while, I don't like seeing the main axes, the red, green, and blue. They start to disturb me after a while, so I go up to view. I turn the axes off, so now I don't have those things, you know, kind of disturbing me. And then now let's say that's a good spot for it. I want to have that, so I'm going to go up to my plus again. I'm making a scene, and I'm going to call this table. T-A-B-L-E, right? So we got that. So now I can I'm going up here to toggle. I've got my table. I can go to my cut list. I can go back to my table. Nice swift way to move around. I can go to my cut list now. And then what I would end up doing here is just I'd print this. So now I have a good shot at my dimensions. They're much cleaner because I don't have a bunch of other posts and rails in the way. I would then go back to my table and I would print that. And then now I would take that into my shop. And for 3 inches here, we're probably going to start with a 3.5 by 3.5, you know, which is out of the Menards or whatever, you know, standard stuff, and then plane it down or run it through a bandsaw or something. And then for the 1.5 by 4, I would probably start with we have access to rough sawn lumber. So I would get some rough sawn lumber and then just clean that stuff up down to where I want it to be. So Mr. or Mrs. Bored at Work, whoever you are, thanks for the comment, and hopefully this is what you're looking for. Again, you always, when you do a tutorial like this, you always run the risk of going too slow, and somebody will say, well, boy, that was way too slow. And then you could have just like this where somebody might say, wow, that was way too fast. I can't please everybody. So hopefully this works out, and if it was too fast, you could always go back and just kind of, you know, go back over the clips and pause it and do whatever else. So anyways, comments are always invited, and I hope this helps, and we'll go from there. I just have to figure out how to turn off the recording thing, which